Well, hey, community. My name is Doug Vance. I'm the community pastor at Yorkville, and this is Community Daily. Our verse today, it's found in Philippians 4. And I love the author, Paul, what he says as he begins. He goes, "Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice." I love Paul's perspective. Perspective can be everything to us, right? And Paul's perspective is amazing when you consider that at this point in time, he's actually in jail writing this letter to the church at Philippi. And I love that as he ends the book, he goes, "Hey, listen, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice." And he goes on to talk about that in every situation, bring our requests to God. And he gives a promise that when we do this, that we will have peace. I think it's interesting that Paul's perspective would probably be very different than what most of us would find if we were in jail in that moment. But Paul is giving this to the church at Philippi as he gives it to you and I, because he understands that perspective, it can sometimes be just a little bit deceiving. My wife and I, Becky, we went out to the Southwest this last spring, and we went to this place called Monument Valley. Now, Monument Valley is iconic in one really great movie. It's called Forrest Gump. Maybe you've seen it. And there's this scene where Forrest is just running, and there's a group of people running behind Forrest. And as he's running out in this wonderful road, and there's this scenic backdrop, Forrest just decides that he is done running. It's an iconic image, I think, in all of movie making. And while we were there, there's actually a place on Google that you can Google called Forrest Gump Point. And so one morning, Becky and I, we just got in our truck and we took off towards Forrest Gump Point. But the more that we journeyed, our perspective wasn't what we expected it to be. Like, I expected this iconic image and just to see amazing scenery. But the reality is that this is what we saw. And as we drove, I began to get more and more, maybe just a little bit frustrated, thinking like, well, did the movie makers just dupe us and just sort of digitally throw in these images? And finally, we got to Forrest Gump Point. And frankly, I was a little, maybe more than just a little bit disappointed until we opened our car doors and we got out and we spun around. And this right here is the image that we saw. Yeah, it's the image that we saw in Forrest Gump. And our breath was taken away. For many of us, we can be going through life and we can see one perspective. But that's why Paul reminds us in this passage of Scripture to rejoice in the Lord always. That even when we see things, even when our circumstances don't seem the way that we would imagine, that we need to have trust and faith that God has us. And when we can stop at times and turn around and see where we've gone, that perspective and that view is absolutely beautiful. Well, I hope that inspires you and me today to live this out in our lives, to rejoice always, because God desires to give us peace. Well, thanks, community. Have a great day.